Tocqueville added, for the time being, diplomacy will nevertheless be useless without war. In his work on Algeria, not published, Tocqueville drew from his October 1841 trip to Algeria. He concluded that there was no time to waste in destroying the power of Abdelkader. France must not despair. If one did not hesitate not to exterminate people, France should subject the tribes to a trade ban and, if necessary, devastate Algeria. He proposed that France should not wait until war's ends to begin to colonize Algeria. Tocqueville did not believe at all in the assimilation of races. His policy towards the natives was summed up in these few lines of his. Those who were in Algeria know that the Islamic society and Christian society have unfortunately no link. They constitute two separate bodies. They know that every day this state of things tends to increase due to factors which cannot be changed. The Arab element is increasingly isolated and gradually dissolved. The Muslim population constantly tends to decrease, while the Christian population grows steadily. The merger of these people is a dream that applies only when one has not been on the scene. There can and must be two very distinct laws in Algeria because there are two very separate societies. The war must be conducted to whatever degree is necessary. Now let us see the second trip of Tocqueville to Algeria, political developments and the specific warning war left by Tocqueville for the French army in Algeria. As a continuation of a policy lacking visibility, the French colonial war in Algeria could be blind and fierce. Tocqueville would also be appointed to Algeria in 1846, a few months after the second disaster of the French colonial troops at Sidi Ibrahim, West Algeria, September 23 to 26, 1845. There, out of 700 French troops headed by Colonel de Montagnac, only 4 returned alive, all of them in a pitiful state, to their barracks in the city of Ghazawet, located 20 miles from the place of fighting. In June 1846, in the debate on special credits in the Chamber of Deputies, Tocqueville spoke his first major speech on Algeria. He argued that relying on the goodwill of the Arab natives to remain in Algeria was an illusion that it would be foolish to expect. In that speech, Tocqueville stated with extreme force that the main thing France must do to keep Algeria was not to conquer the natives, because they were already defeated, or keep them under regular government, but to import a European population into Algeria to settle there as an agricultural community. Tocqueville concluded his talk by proposing the creation of a special ministry to assume all Algerian affairs and would end the insubordination of the general governor Bugeaud and the powerlessness and paralysis that had installed in Algeria. A year before his major report of 1847 to the Chamber of Deputies in Paris, Tocqueville reduced the Algerian problem to the single issue of European settlement. Tocqueville returned to Algiers, arriving in early October 1846. General Bugeaud accompanied him from Algiers to Oran by land, where he spent a day with General Lamoricière, commander in the west. Invited by General Bedeau, commander in the east, he traveled to Constantine, arriving December 20. There he remained for only 1 week and returned to France, reaching Paris by early January 1847. In early 1847, Tocqueville shared with the Brotherhood of Saint-Simonians, believed that Algeria was the great business of France. It could reconcile the domination and colonization, and above all, to sack General Bugeaud. He suggested it was time to rethink France's policy towards Algeria, arguing financial imperatives require that we turn to other methods, less expensive in man and funds. As Tocqueville said, speaking of the future of French rule in Algeria, in this matter, question of humanity and budget meet and mingle. Tocqueville, in the Chamber of Deputies, presented a report on loans May 24, 1847. He noted that native cities were invaded, overthrown, sacked by the administration, even more than by arms. A large number of individual properties were torn, destroyed. Tocqueville argued that Muslim society in Algeria was not uncivilized. She had only a backward and imperfect civilization. In Algeria, Tocqueville argued against the use of natives as agents of government, the policy which General Bugeaud supported. He explained it should be a balance between those who would treat Algerians in all circumstances as equal citizens and those who profess that the native population be forever incapable of any amendment and any progress. What France owes them, Tocqueville wrote, is good government, a power that directs them, that governs them, and does not merely exploit them. This time, Tocqueville's ideas were found to be very practical. The French colonial troops needed retaliations which were disproportionate. Pragmatically, Tocqueville didn't oppose France's violent methods of making war. For Algeria, he accepted all the violence which was not contrary to certain principles, which it used to the single condemnation of raids with killings. Tocqueville's realism didn't turn towards those principles, but towards efficiency. The French army chief commandant rushed pitilessly against all the Algerian tribes, systematic praise of genocide and plundering. All the French generals indulged in the most abject and odious massacres. This highlights the difference between Abdelkader's respect for a human being and his dignity and General Bugeaud and his officers, who were guilty in history of one of the greatest crimes against mankind. The country was inflamed, devastated by fires in villages and the crops. The villages and the harvest were burned down. The population was taken hostage and massacred. The military objective was to completely ruin the tribes and to force them to abandon Abdelkader, who called on his adversaries to stop the invasion and the firing of arms, to leave room for peaceful exchanges that raise people to the level of civilization, whatever their racial or religious differences. Violence was imposed on Abdelkader. He had before him men who had chosen the job of arms, that is to say professional military, who had rocked into crime, perfidy and barbarity. Abdelkader, Knight of the Faith, defied them in ignoring that the laws of chivalry could not apply in a colonial war. The tribes suffered enormously. The strategy of the colonial army lay on the technique of scorched earth, applied systematically. The French generals used devastation as a doctrine. They did not burn the country on the sly, and they did not massacre the enemies using humanitarian tirades. They all made a glory out of it. My short conclusion is that at the end, Tocqueville's ideas were rewarded. Algeria endured all the force of European civilization, but of a civilization entirely devoid of that charity that was supposed to be its print. Alexis de Tocqueville, with his contribution to democracy in America, was far from what he'd advocated for French colonization and left to the brutal rule in Algeria on behalf of freedom and democracy. Thank you.